Discussions in class are open to different lived experiences. Would you make any recommendations so that this statement is true in your course?
My course was criminology and sociology, which inherently is quite an inclusive course anyway. For example, there was a subject a couple of years ago that did talk about trans people, and the teacher was very open to me as the only trans person in the room speaking about my lived experience, and everybody in the room was very respectful. They all listened to the conversation. And also there's been instances of learning about other cultures and other races, people with disabilities. And if somebody in the room belongs to that kind of background, then they are able to openly talk about it. And I think it's really good for the course, because that means that we're not only getting all the academic things that our teacher's giving to us, we're also getting a case study right in front of us, somebody that's telling us everything that they know from their own lived experience of it. I don't know how much that would relate to other courses, for example, physics, because it wouldn't be the same kind of course. But I think if you have the opportunity to be as inclusive as you possibly can be, you should definitely take that opportunity, because it's more beneficial than it is detrimental at the end of the day.
A paper discussing inclusivity in higher education defines an inclusive curriculum as one where all students' entitlement to access and participate in a course is anticipated and taken into account. How important is an inclusive curriculum to you?
Going back to my own lived experience when I was at university, we had this one teacher who every single week would give you loads of reading to do, and it would always be on a little tiny text. And it would be like pages and pages and pages. And bearing in mind, this was just one class out of the whole week, every single week. And I can struggle to read sometimes. I am a little bit dyslexic. And I just couldn't do it every week. And then every week in class, he'd figure out that I hadn't done all the reading, and then he'd berate me for it in front of the whole class. And it was awful. I eventually just stopped turning up to that class because I just hated turning up to it. And I think that's important, because that didn't take into account, because it probably wasn't only me that struggled with it. I bet most of the students struggled with it, because like they have other classes, they also have lives. That was in itself very inclusive, because it didn't take into account people that might have learning difficulties, people that might be in difficult situations. For example, if they're like a carer for a family member, if they have to have a job, if they have children or anything like that, they don't have the time to do all of that reading every single week, or they don't have the ability to do it at all. So I think to be more inclusive, you have to take into account what can every one of these students in this class reasonably achieve every single week, and then set that as being the work that they have to do in that week.
What's your preferred way of being assessed in university, and why?
See, I quite like coursework. A lot of my subject is very coursework based. And I like that in particular because you can go away, you can take it away, and you have the time to like perfect it, basically. So you're not given you're not sat down in a room and told you have to write a perfect essay in 2 hours. You're given weeks to do research and to talk to people, and then to just be able to sit down. You can make a rough copy, and then you can improve it. You can get your friends or family to just give it a read through, just to make sure it all makes sense and looks reasonably okay. For assessments that need to be more short term, so like the ones where you do have to sit in a hall, I think it's important to do it how it started to be done during COVID, which is when you were given the question, then you were given 2 days to finish the question, because that represents more what real life is like. So in real life, you're not given a question and then sat down in a room where all the walls are blank and you can't look up anything. Like, everybody has Google right at their fingertips now. So to be able to tell people oh, you can have this question and you can go away and you can actually do the question in your own time, do some, if you're stuck at one point, you can ask somebody, or you can look it up, you can get a book out. I think that's important because that represents real life more than not being able to do any of that kind of stuff. Because if you're sat in an office and you have a question, you can ask one of your colleagues the question. You can look up the question. And if we want to teach students about what the real world is going to be like, that's what the real world's going to be like. Like, yes, you will have a deadline, but you won't just be on your own in it. There's other facilities there to assist you.